Hello, my name is Laura Galicchio, and we're going to be talking about the association between sugar-sweetened beverage consumption and BMI with the analysis of the Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System. So just to give a little bit of a background, so the aim of this specific analysis was to assess the association of BMI and sugar-sweetened beverage consumption using the BRFSS surveillance system from the 2016 data, specifically for the state of New York. Now, sugar-sweetened beverages or sugary drinks, I'm sure we're all familiar with them, and they are the leading sources of added sugars in the American diet. And frequently drinking these beverages, unfortunately, comes at a cost. And it is associated with weight gain, obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease, and other chronic health conditions. So if we look at this data specifically, as you can see on the left over here is just an image that the CDC produced showing the rates of sugar-sweetened beverages across the country. With the darker ones, there's higher prevalence in drinking these beverages. So nationally, 63% of adults age 18 or older reported drinking sugar-sweetened beverages once daily or more. And then if we look at New York specifically, we see that rate to be 65.6%. So seeing this, we see that New York in general has a higher rate than the national rate when it comes to consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages. So what did we do from here? We further analyzed this data. So again, we took the 2016 BRFSS system surveillance data, and general background on that is this is a tool that's used to collect statewide data on individuals who are 18 years or older, and it's self-reported data collection it's composed of health-related risk behaviors and chronic health conditions. So it helps kind of figure out trends going along in our country, and from this, researchers and clinicians and policy individuals can further take this information, and we could see what's going on in this country and maybe what needs change. So again, we just wanted to restrict our data to New York, which is what we did. And all of these, steps in our data process was used with the help of Stata, which was this statistical software that helped us further analyze the data and put it into tables and visualizations and graphs. So that helped us further assess this data and further make sense of it for us. So again, we want to look at the outcome and exposure of this analysis, the outcome being BMI, which was categorized into normal, overweight, and obese categories. And then again, the exposure being sugar-sweetened beverage consumption, which units was per week for this. And as you can see the categories below, it was 4 different categories that range from 0 drinks a week and then all the way up to more than 7 drinks per week. And then we also looked at other variables, also known as covariates, in this study. So we looked at binary, categorical, and continuous variables. As you can see here, some examples were race, age, education, income, ethnicity, physical activity levels, etc. And from here, we did some further data cleaning, and we looked at all these variables separately. And we excluded the observations that had missing values in all of this, and we even created variables as well that weren't in the original data set, which were the history of cardiovascular disease and then the diagnosis of diabetes. So we were left with, after cleaning a bit, we were left with our remaining observations after getting the outliers out and those that were missing data. And next we needed to wait to adjust for the differences, and we were left with crude and adjusted regression models. And then we assessed the outputs we got from running these analyses, including the lowest curve, CPR plot, residual plot, and the QQ plot. And from here we were able to conclude that these assumptions were met. And within this, we found several different results. And the first table that was produced from all this, you can see the snapshot at the bottom. It just includes the sugar-sweetened beverage part, which of course was our main finding that we cared most about. And as you can see here, one thing that we found was the more sugar-sweetened beverages that were drank tended to be individuals who had a higher BMI and were labeled as obese. And then throughout this, we also see other observations, which I labeled a few as well. Again, there's more than this, but these were just a few that popped out. And we see that the physical activity in the last 30 days, individuals with, normal BMIs, people who weren't overweight or obese, they report the most physical activity. And then we see the history of cardiovascular disease. So we see that it's more prevalent among those who are obese, and then the same for ever diagnosed with diabetes. And then we looked at some further results here with the association again of BMI and sugar-sweetened beverage consumption with the unadjusted and adjusted linear regression. So we see different results through both unadjusted model and the adjusted model, and we're able, again, you can see those that are listed above, and again, we were able to see covariate observations as well. And looking at the unadjusted model, we see no significant association found between less than 1 or 1 to less than 7 sugar-sweetened beverages per week in BMI. We do see an increase of 0.4 units of BMI looking at the more than 7 sugar-sweetened beverages per week. And then when the model is adjusted, we see units of increase for BMI for both categories there. And then there's also, again, the covariate relationships we see. And I just picked a few here, just looking at the physical activity. So reporting no physical activity in the last 30 days associated with an increase of 0.73 units of BMI. And reporting diabetes diagnosis associated with an increase of 2.4 units of BMI. So after conducting this analysis and seeing the results laid out in tables, we can see that there is an association between sugar-sweetened beverages and BMI, and we see that those who have a higher BMI tend to also have a higher rate of consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages per week. So from here, what's next? What do we do with this information? So, states such as New York already have began to address this issue through education and campaigns, and they've also worked to try to increase taxes on sugar-sweetened beverages in hopes that less people would buy these beverages. So there's a lot of different things that we can do here, working to further education and prevention and intervention work, continued research again, looking at this data from different aspects, and policy change, which we hope that we can get to, which is a big step. So one form of intervention that I came across was traffic light labeling. So this would involve labeling all beverages with some type of colored label with red, orange, and green. And the red label would, in hopes, let people know that this beverage has a lot of sugar, a very high sugar content. So this usually includes sodas and energy drinks, sports drinks, fruit drinks. And then it kind of descends to the orange or yellow, which I drink occasionally, which is diet soda, maybe lower calorie beverages and low sugar drinks. And then the green, which could be water, seltzer water, things that are, more healthy. So I think this could be a great way to target the population of New York. And the goal of this intervention would be, one, we could educate the public on what high-risk beverages are. And this could be just, putting up flyers such as this one right here on the right, just putting these throughout the community and, to further get this news out on what we're doing here in New York and what our hopes are. And of course, we wanted to look at this, the design of this, we wanted to look at it from a social economic model. So as you can see up here, we start with the individual, we go to social network, their families, peers, we go to community, school, workplace, neighborhood, which looks different for people in New York, and then also policy. So, we have to keep in mind the local, state, and national laws that are in place. So again, another goal of this intervention, we want less consumption of these high-risk beverages and these sugary beverages, and, we need individuals to know that there is a risk of drinking these. And again, we see, like in our analysis, we see high rates of cardiovascular disease and diabetes among individuals, and we just need this messaging to go out further. And there's several different ways we can intervene here, and I think just from a community level would be a great start with this campaign. And these posters can be put in schools and workplaces, gyms, recreation centers, doctors' offices, grocery stores, all over the place to get the message out as to what we're doing here in New York. And how do we measure the effectiveness of this intervention? So within New York, I think it's important that we work with companies and industries that sell these beverages that people are buying. So this could be with grocery stores within the state, restaurants, gas stations, convenience stores, places where people go in and buy their beverages. And from here, we want to collect this data. So we want to know how many individuals are buying these beverages with the green tab on them, stating that there's no sugar, they're healthy, and these are good drinks to drink. And then we also want to see how many people are buying the yellow beverages as well as the red beverages that are really sugary. And again, this shouldn't involve too much extra work for grocery stores or restaurants and gas stations, since they usually record inventory and they have this in their system already. But it would be us collecting this data to see what the community's buying even after they're advertised and they're educated about these levels of sugar beverages. And as for evaluation, we also want to touch base with our community. We want to see, physically, are you noticing these labels on your bottles? And what does that mean to you? And are you seeing them and not caring? Or are you seeing them and being more mindful about what you put in your body? And then also the behavioral aspect behind it. And it's did you change your mind about your purchase? Did you originally reach for the red label, but you saw that it was red and contained a lot of sugar, and you thought, what, maybe let me switch to the green, or even just harm reduction and going to the yellow sticker. And so we want to know if it's working, of course, on the community. And again, the data collection behind it is important. So we do want to get those numbers and the raw data, but we also want to touch base with the community, since again, that's our population, that's the New York residents. We want to see how this is affecting them and if it's productive or not. And then again, we want to build these partnerships within our community, not with just the community members, but again with these grocery stores and those who are selling these beverages. And then we want to just, again, see if there's been a difference that they've noticed since implementing this program. And in general, of course, we need ongoing education and prevention and research behind sugar-sweetened beverages and BMI. And we just further want to, get out that message, since, we're trying here to prevent individuals from developing chronic conditions that no one wants. And, these are preventable. And by drinking less of these sugar-sweetened beverages, we can choose a healthier lifestyle pattern for us, for our family members, for our community members, and I find it super important. And I think this would be a great start for this intervention to see if it works in New York. So these are my references, and thank you very much.